Tony Gilroy's script was extraordinary, and a pleasure to speak his words. And the first thing he said was, "Don't think Star Wars, think John le Carre."
So, hi, I'm Jonathan Blomberg, writing for MovieZine in Sweden.
Hi, Jonathan. Nice to meet you.
Right back at you. So it's a pleasure being able to speak with you. I've followed your work for many years, but I must say that last year, watching Andor, that was a very special role to see you in, and you really excelled at that. So I wanted to begin there. How was it to step into Star Wars and being a part of it in that fashion?
It was amazing. Yeah, I mean, it felt like something I've never ever encountered before, and it felt like quite intimidating to go into a big studio, into Pinewood, and working with, suddenly it's Hollywood. I've been a sort of jobbing actor for all my career, and suddenly it's the big one. And of course,
Yeah.
then with all the nerves, you go in with all the nerves and the expectations and the fear. And actually, of course, everybody's lovely and normal and very down to earth and very welcoming. And it's just another job. But what was great was it was a brilliant script, as you know. Tony Gilroy's script was extraordinary, and a pleasure to speak his words. And the first thing he said was, "Don't think Star Wars, think John le Carre."
Yeah, and that's a really good I really feel like the show kind of stands out of the Star Wars bunch. It happens
Genre.
to be set within that universe, but it doesn't necessarily feel like any of the other shows at all. So I think that's a good
Yeah.
call to because it's a lot of like the other Le Carre movies and shows that we've seen throughout the years.
Yes. He's much more interested in people, human interaction and the little betrayals and alliances that make the human condition. Much more interested in that than the lightsabers and the action sequences. And so
Yeah. It's used like some just sprinkle it at the right moments, but
yes.
that's not being the main story. So I like that, and your part in particular as a kind of someone working within a major organization, trying to do the right thing within his own circumstance, but clearly being on the wrong side of things
Yes.
at the same time.
Absolutely. And I love those parts that are complicated, as we all are. They're much more interesting than just being a baddie or a goodie. He's very complex, and he's very, as you say, he's under a lot of pressure from above. Yeah, it's very fulfilling to play. And again in the second series, which is going to come out in the spring, I think, if the strike ever finishes.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and that kind of there are some overlap with your character in Better as well. There's a guy who has owned up to his own previous mistakes, but for selfish reasons, as he put it himself. So I've only seen the first two episodes of this season. But we get to spend quite a lot of time with your character in the second episode. But could you talk a bit about your character in Better and what you kind of felt like was the main reasons you wanted to take on that role?
It's interesting that you pick on those two roles, because I would say that they're the two best parts I've had in television in my whole career. I've had really lovely parts and varied parts, but suddenly those two were very special. And when I got the script for Better, I said to my agent, "Oh, what is it?" And she said, "Oh, it's another cop show, another police." And okay. And I started to read it, and I couldn't put it down. I thought it was really clever, very interesting, very unusual, and not at all the usual formula for a police drama. But when I was reading it, I was thinking, there's something about this character. I don't know what this is, but I'm really intrigued about it. And I couldn't work out what it was until I think I'd finished it. And then it just clicked why I was so interested in the man. And it was because it reminded me of my favorite character in all of literature. And he is a character called Sidney Carton in a book called A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I don't know if you've ever read it.
No, I've heard of it, but I haven't read it, so I don't know the reference.
Okay, well, to cut a long story short, for
Yeah,
people who haven't read it, it's the most wonderful story about a man whose life, in his own estimation, is a complete waste. He's failed as a human being in his own eyes. He's never done a decent thing in his life. He's always been in the shadows. And then he gets one opportunity to redeem himself. And I suddenly realized, this is it. This is a man. I mean, they're totally different kind of people. Sidney Carton is a lawyer, intelligent person, but Vernon is as you know, is a sort of a bent cop, very bent cop who hasn't done a decent thing in his life.
yeah.
But the similarity is that they get one opportunity to change that, and I just loved that. That really touched my heart. He wasn't just a sort of bent old geezer. He was a man, and you started to see where his potential might have taken him, and I really warmed to that. And and it was a joy to flesh him out and to find.
Yeah, I can see that, and I obviously must pick up that book now as well.
Yeah, go for it.
For me, I kind of got the vibes from the Slow Horses character that Gary Oldman plays, Jackson Lamb, kind of that vibe as well.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, so now I give you homework too.
Okay, what's it called?
Slow Horses. It's an Apple TV Plus show. But I got those kind of vibes from him as well. He's still a working cop though.
Okay.
But you should take a look at that for sure. I was also thinking. Now for the past few months, I've rarely had the opportunity to speak with actors now due to the strikes going on on the other side of the pond. And I was thinking about how you've had a long career in this business, but as you said, maybe not always had like the major parts, and it's the strikes going on now are for the people not being able to get those tens of millions of paychecks.
Yes.
So I was really interested of hearing your perspective of how the business have changed here in Europe during your years of working and now going into this streaming era.
Yeah. Well, I've been so fortunate. I've been so blessed in that I've never really been out of work since I started. There's always been something to do.
Yeah.
Not always what I would choose in terms of a role, but there's always been something. So I've been always very grateful that there's always been work. Suddenly there isn't, and I think I haven't done anything since July, perhaps. I haven't even had an offer of anything, and that's very unusual for me. So it's healthy. It's good for me to see what it's like not to always know what I'm doing. And I feel for the people who have never been in the position I've been in, which is always to have some work, because for the people who are not the main actors, who are not even the supporting actors, but people who depend on the business for their day-to-day income, the makeup artists, the dressers, the set designers, the stunt guys, people who are not at the front of the queue when it comes out to get the pay.
Exactly. That there's a lot of people being affected by all of this.
All the spin-off of it, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a very unusual territory, and yeah, it's I'm enjoying it, and I'm sort of thinking, I hope it doesn't go on too long because I like
Yeah, me too. And I hope they get what they want, of course, the actors and the writers as well. And obviously, I've also seen Game of Thrones and and your role in that series as well. I was wondering, how do people still like recognize you from playing that part, walking
Yes,
around on the street, and
they
how
do.
how is that having that role, being a part of your legacy now?
It's great. I mean, people say, "Oh, you must get people coming up to you, and is it a pain?" And I love it because I'm not at the level of like a film star who can't go out the house because he gets mobbed. It's
Yeah.
like maybe once, I don't know, once in a supermarket in a week, somebody will say, "Oh, I saw you in," and enjoyed that. And it's very lovely. I love it when people say they like my work. And I say to my kids, if you anybody whose work you appreciate, whether it's an actor or a plumber, tell them, say thank you for doing a good job. And yeah, it's a real pleasure. In fact, yesterday a lady came up. I took a train to London, and a lady came up and said something nice, and it just made my day. It's a real treat. Um,
And that's good to hear.
usually it's Game of Thrones or Endeavour, because I did a long series about Morse. I don't know if you know the series Endeavour.
Yeah, I don't think that was as big here in Sweden, but I know it's big over there. But when my wife heard that I was going to speak with you, she watches the Midsummer Murders on repeat
Yes,
all the time, and those I think it's 2 episodes, right? You did there.
I did two different characters years
Yeah,
ago.
she doesn't care about the Game of Thrones or stuff like that, but the Midsummer Murders, oh, it's that guy.
I don't do social media or look at comments or read reviews or anything, but my son sent me something that was really funny. The character I play in Andor is in the ISB, the Imperial Security Bureau,
Yeah,
and Qyburn was a kind of dodgy, sort of mysterious character. Well, somebody had written when Andor came out, Qyburn is ISB. I knew it.
yeah.
It was very, very clever.
Well, that's the spin-off we're all waiting for,
Yeah, yeah,
obviously.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So moving forward now, we have better coming out pretty soon. I was wondering now at this stage of your career, what is it that you look for when accepting new offers? And we hope you get a bunch of new offers now after this dry
Yeah.
spell.
Actors always think that that's the last job, and I say to my
Yeah.
agent, "Is that it? Is it personal?" She said, "No, no, no. It's to do with the strikes. There are things about, but nothing that you might want to do, that sort of thing." I just love doing whatever turns up that surprises me and is intelligent and complicated, and I can't sort of describe in a sort of rational sentence what it is I look for, but I know it when I see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It has to
you can
touch.
feel it.
Yeah, it has to touch me in some way. It has to be. And I got something this morning. My agent did send me something, so I was not telling the truth, and I said I haven't got anything. Something came through, and I looked at it, and within seconds, I knew I didn't want to go near it. It was so unpleasant. So what I look forward to doing is something like that arrives, a bit like Better or like Andor, but a character that I'm intrigued by, and I find a bit sort of, I don't know that I could do it well. I don't know that I would do it badly, but it has to have that little.
Yeah. A follow-up questions, if we have a bit more time left, there is, what if you find a really juicy character that you would like to play, but you feel like the rest of the story isn't to your liking, is there still a part in you that, well, I still want to do that character because I love that, even though, or is it, but the overall story, it won't fly, and I don't like that at all, so I'll
That's
pass on that fantastic.
tricky. That's really tricky, actually, when that happens. It hasn't happened often. But I do have to try and be true to my feeling of, is this whole thing something I want to be involved in? I may have a really wonderful scene, but would I like my kids to go and see this? I think sometimes actually,
Yeah.
no, I don't know. But it's not a general thing. It's case by case. Sometimes I will do it because it is particularly interesting, even though the whole film I might think, isn't going to be a success.
I see. Well, thanks a lot for taking your time to speak with me, and best of luck with the future and the premiere of this show in particular, of course. And I'm obviously waiting for Andor.